I think it went really well. We had to relearn, I would say, just kind of paying attention to our level. As far as like our cabinets, we had to re-level our cabinetry, just the bottom ones, due to the fact that we only used a 4 foot level. I mean, you're only able. I mean, these are 4 foot right there. So you're only able to level that one out with that. We used a 6 foot today, and that actually went a lot better, and we got things leveled out.
Just on the caulking and on the paint prep, once we had our first coat up, we noticed today that there were a couple areas where the caulking has shrank or dried that need to be touched up. So that's something, if you can do that before you paint, that's going to make things easier. I wish I would have been a little more confident on wiring these electrical boxes. This is only my second time doing the lights and the electrical boxes, so we're a little bit shaky on that still, and we needed a little bit of guidance. So we got about half of it done today, and we'll finish the rest tomorrow with a little more guidance on those, the more complicated, the three-way switches, the half hot, and the GFIs that we haven't been able to identify our home runs yet.
Yeah, that is a big thing. We were told to make sure that we identify our GFIs, our hots, especially for this is it 5 or 3 socket thing? You have 3 individual light fixtures going in there, and you want to make sure that they're identified, because if not, well, you're gonna have an issue on wiring everything. So make sure everything is done properly, I would say, and labeled, and take the time to actually label your things and just do it right.
I don't think there was any big mistakes today as far as putting on the wiring and stuff. I did run into a challenge a few times that some of the wires were cut very short. So that would have been whoever did some of this wiring and prepped the boxes originally. Some of the ground wires especially were a little tricky to work with. So wish they would have been longer, but we made it work.
Again, I would say with the leveling of our cabinetry. Now, I mean, right now they're perfectly squared. I got them completely squared right, or leveled. But it's just a matter of fact of using the correct tools. We didn't have an 8 foot level here, but that would have been nice, so we could take a level point from here all the way to our third cabinet. Some of these, I'm not gonna point them out. But yeah, just want to make sure that everything's nice and level.
Be prepared. So don't just start like putting in your outlets. Make sure that you have your wire nuts. Make sure that you have all your tools. Make sure that if you need some extra wire for pigtailing, that you go get that. So have everything ready before you jump in. So set yourself up for success. Lay all of your outlets out where they belong, your switches and your GFIs, and that way you can just kind of move along and wire them up one at a time.
Tips for this. I'm use my pointer stick. My pointer stick, as you can tell, I put one nail there. I might be taking it out later. However, it's not bothering anything. It's kind of flush. I did go ahead and put screws, but I pre-drilled these screws. As you can see, I did not pre-drill that one, so it went ahead. Can you get that little end part? It went ahead and actually split on me because I did not pre-drill. So maybe pre-drill these, because they are smaller pieces of wood, so they tend to split a lot quicker. And yeah, I would just say take the time and pre-drill. And other than that, that's about it.
Good morning. So today we're going to work on our electrical trim, and we'll also be working on just finishing up a couple things. We want to make sure that our cabinets are totally level and they haven't shifted overnight, and that we're still ready for our countertops. And we're also going to be working on trying to get our second coating of paint done. So for the electrical trim, you're going to want to get your multimeter tool, your tester. You will want a pair of these. This is the closest thing that the students have to needle nose pliers. And then you'll also want to get a screwdriver. You're going to need both a flathead, and this one is kind of neat because it switches around, so it also has a Phillips head to it. For the countertops, he will need his oscillating tool to cut some of the shims and just finalize everything. He may need to move some screws, and he's definitely going to need the level. For the paint, we just need the paint sprayer and, of course, our buckets of water.
6 foot level?
6 foot level, very important for the cabinets.
Not the 4 foot level.
Yes,
6 foot level.
Biggest level you can find. Good morning. So today we had the countertops scheduled to do, but they haven't arrived yet. So we're going to keep things moving forward, and we're going to start doing the electrical trim. Once we do that part, once we get all the outlets and the lights in, we are going to start on the flooring. We'll see how far we can get, And if the countertops show up in time, we'll do those today. And if not, we'll get to those tomorrow. So we're just getting ready to do our electrical trim. And the first thing we're doing is getting the lights set up, familiarizing ourselves with everything. So we've got our regular outlets here. We have our GFI outlets that are all going to go along the countertops here. Obviously the lights, and then all of our trim that's going to go on top of that. And the other thing that we've started doing is pulling out our wires, getting them ready. And you can see there's some drywall on some of these. So we also want to clean them as we go. Just try to get your box in here as organized as possible so that it'll be really easy to set it up once you're ready. Yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do is make sure, so like, okay, this one is an outlet, so that's going to go here. Right, this one's an outlet, so that's going to go here. And I'm just going to lay them all out by the outlets, and then JC and I will move around the house and just get them all installed.
So I'm putting my backboard, that way we can get our, I forget what these are called.
Lazy Susan?
No. You know, for your kitchen tops on, so we can get everything on. So you gotta put your backboard here. It's a 1x. Yeah. And that's basically what I'm doing. It's just something that it can nail to, brad nailing or whatever you may use for that. So gotta get it here, here, and then one across the other side. Yeah, so I'm just making sure everything's level. That way it looks nice and smooth, and you don't have a weird bump on your kitchen tops.
I was wondering why I have a light switch by itself that I was given, and then a box of light switches, and on those it says not three-way. So as I'm looking at them, then I can see my answer here. So this is the not three-way, and you can see it only has 2 gold screws and the ground. This one, I'm assuming, is our three-way. So we have a black screw here, and then we also have the 2 gold screws plus the ground. So I'm going to keep this one set aside, and I'm pretty sure it's either going to go on this light switch over here, the three-way, or on this panel over here. So I'm going to keep this one to the side and not use it for the other regular lights. So I actually got 2 of these. 2 of these three-ways, so that makes more sense. So we got 1 for each side of that three-way light switch. So keep those separate from your regular light switches. This will go behind the fridge. So this will be this one. Just leave that there for now. That's going to be that one. And what else we got? This one. Take all your light covers off if you're not sure how, if you don't remember from the last build. It's just a turn, so you're gonna, let's see here, if I can get it in. There we go. So it's on, and you're just gonna take it and turn it clockwise, and it pops right off. Putting it back on is a little more tricky. You just have to make sure you can see these little ridges stick out, and you want to hook them into these hooks right here. So you just have to line them up and then turn it counterclockwise to get it back on. Just a little update on cleaning these wires if you accidentally got paint on them like we did. This sandpaper works a lot better than just scraping with your fingernails, so I would recommend if you need to clean any wires off that have paint on them, just get a little bit of sandpaper and do that, and it works pretty quickly and efficiently.
So GFIs are a little bit different than your average receptacles because if you look on the back here, they have little words that tell you what they want. So this one's the low charge. So you have to figure out where your power is being fed from. You put that there. The line is where it makes the connection. So you put the wire that's connecting the next outlet that doesn't have power to this. You put your power to that. Make sense?
Yes.
So you just have
How do we figure that out?
So one of the best ways that I've done it is you guys have the access to the plug-in outlets, right? Right now? So that's how we did it. We figured out which one is feeding on the way. Usually when you build a house, the right way to do it is to take your finger,
pigtail it,
yeah,
kind of
make
pigtail, a little,
kind of give it a little pigtail
and I don't
right
know
there.
if that's like what that had been. I can't really tell.
Yeah,
at this
so
point.
at this point, since you don't know and you don't know who built this house, I would plug in the power and just test each one.
Okay.
and see where the power comes from.
Okay.
No, they did not.
Nope.
So, one of the most important things when you're framing a house and running the electrical through it is you mark which one your powers are, because then at this point you got to make a whole bunch of makeup work to be able to figure it out.
Okay, Josh, so I know that we're supposed to do one color of wire on each screw, but I don't remember which one. So do you have pointers for us on how to remember which ones go on which side?
Yeah, so the way that I like to think about it is at least one of them match the color, and that's the white. So you put the white with the silvers and then blacks with the golds. And when it comes to these outlets, it doesn't matter which one is put where when it comes to the power, which one's feeding the power. So you can either put the one that's feeding the power on the top or on the bottom. It doesn't matter.
All right, and then the ground goes on the green.
Yep, and the ground goes on the green as well.
Okay, easy.
So what we're doing is we're taking a look at the back of the cabinets for right now. So he's leveling them out. So these ones were a little bit low, but as we took a level and brought it out to our front and ran it across our front, we're almost a 1/4 inch low on the front now. So now he's got to articulate these cabinets up a little bit to get the same height all the way around the room. And another thing you could do, is take your level across the face of your cabinets and make sure that they're all lined up perfectly right here or within specs. Especially if you have a long line of cabinets, you want to make sure the faces are all lined up, because your countertop will run straight across them, but if your cabinets are going in and out, that's going to reflect that. So it's 16 from there, but remember you got those. All right, look at across right there. So you're low here, and then you almost touch the level back here.
Yeah.
So your Lazy Susan is articulated that way.
So we'll do with some more shim. Now does the back have to be blocked out or anything? Because like if you take your level from like across it this way.
So we're just looking to set
Sure
these.
it's all level, but we're a little off in our back in our Lazy Susan. And there's no blocking back there. Well, actually there is. There's this little backboard, of course. It's like a piece of ply. And put a shim back there. Try to see if it goes up.
Well, you don't want the back to go up. You want the back to go down. Keep going. Go ahead and finish off the shim.
So we're going to go over putting in a simple, straightforward outlet. So we've got our 2 black wires here, our 2 white wires, and our ground. You can see that whoever made up this box didn't totally finish. So we're going to strip this one. Usually take out about 3/4 of an inch off the end. You don't want to do too much because then you'll have it hanging out and you may have to trim it. And then if you trim it too much, you might not have a lot of wires to work with after. These ones are actually a bit long, but that's fine. We'll have lots of extra space to move on. Like Josh said earlier, we're going to do the white on the silver. We're going to do our copper on the green, and then the black ones will be on the gold side. So I take my pliers and curve these so they'll fit nicely over the screws. You just kind of grab the very end as much as you can and then just twist it in a circular motion. Okay. And then sometimes you may need to back it out. You can use a flathead or a Phillips for this. I like using a Phillips because it seems to grip better. So I'm just going to turn all my screws out like about a half turn just to give myself a little room to get the wire in there. You don't want to back these out too much because then your screw will come out and they're kind of a pain to get back in. So to get your outlet in, you want to really get these wires molded into that kind of N shape, a zigzag shape, so they can accordion up behind. And then you can get your screws in. And this is why I like the Phillips instead of a flathead, because sometimes you have to use a little muscle, and that Phillips just seems like it grabs the screw and doesn't let it strip out as easily. When we put the trim on, we'll want to level it, and we'll go over that as well. So you don't have to get this fully tight into the wall, as you may need to adjust it a little bit when you're putting on your plates. All right, here we are on the butt wall that leads out to the hallway of the adjoining unit. And so you may notice that this outlet is a little different. It has a lot more wires coming out of it than the other regular outlets. We're still going to use just a standard outlet, but we only have 4 screws, and there's actually 6 wires coming out here. We have 3 whites and 3 blacks, and then 3 coppers. So I prepared this already a little bit. Corey showed me how to do it. So we have all of our grounds together. We're just going to twist them in a really tight braid. Or not, you're just going to twist them and twist them as many times as you can, as tightly as you can. And if you do it this way, you won't need a Buchanan. What you're going to do is you're going to need to go track down some scrap pieces of wire. So I think there's a scrap bucket over here on the side. Yep, so you'll get a scrap piece and you'll pull the wires out. So I'm going to black one and a white one, and we're going to use these to pigtail. So we can't put all 6 of these on our outlet. So what we're going to do is take the 3 that are coming out of the wall, and along with our pigtail, so we're going to have 4 of them, we're going to twist them together, and let me see if I take this nut off so you can see what it looks like. So you're going to take these, you're going to use probably your needle nose, unless you have a pair of linemen's. I don't think the students do. So these are the next best thing. We're going to twist it, and you just want to really grasp it and twist it all the way around in the same direction. And you want to twist it clockwise, because we're going to continue twisting it clockwise with the nut. At the end, once you've twisted them, you will want to get your little nippers and cut it at a 45-degree angle. And so you can see how that makes it really pointy, and that helps it slide into this nut better. So you'll get that on and get it as tight as you can. If you can't tighten it all the way with your hand, you can go ahead and use your needle nose to get those. I don't know that these are exactly needle nose. They're not that pointy. I'm not sure what this tool is called. So we'll get these. Now we just have these 2 long pieces here. So that will make it really easy. We're going to attach the white one to the silver side, the black one to the gold side, and the ground, as always, to the green. I'm going to cut these down because they're a little bit too long, and then we're going to connect it just like a regular outlet, fold everything up like an accordion, and push it into the wall. So when you're putting these on, you want to make sure that your wire goes in a clockwise direction, and you'll be tightening your screw also in that same clockwise direction. If you do it in the opposite direction, it can actually come out from under your screw when you're tightening it. So we're going to get it in there, and then get our screwdriver here. You can use either the flathead or the Phillips to tighten these in, whichever one seems to work best for you. You definitely want to use whatever is not stripping the screws.
And when you go clockwise, and it's actually working with the screw, right?
Yes, so it's just pushing it in and sealing it in more that way. So there you go. These screws are a little bit soft, so whichever tip you're using, whether it's the Phillips or the flathead, just make sure you're putting a lot of pressure into them as you go, otherwise they will strip out pretty easily. You can see I've got some little metal shards on here from when I turned it and I wasn't pushing quite hard enough into the wall. See, there we go again. Okay, it's in there. All right, so I've got most of the outlets in. We can't do our GFIs just yet because we need to figure out which ones are our home runs. And it's almost lunchtime, but we're gonna just work on a few lights for now. And then hopefully we'll be able to connect the back of the breaker box later after lunch. We do still need to do a second coat of paint on the outside of our house. So I think JC is gonna do that right after lunch, and then we'll finish up the electrical. We might have time to get to the flooring. We had a couple holdups with the cabinetry and some fixing and adjusting, so we'll see how far we can get today.
Welcome back from lunch.
So right now we're just gonna wire up a really simple light. So I'm going to strip these, so put it on the ends here. A little tricky to do with one hand. And then we're going to, this one is really easy because you have 3 wires and 3 wires. So it's super simple. We're going to do the black with the black, the white with the white, and the ground with the ground. So we'll just take these 2, put them beside each other, and then you just get the, flip back too much. Put them beside each other. You want them like tip to tip. And then you just slide that wire nut on there and start turning. And I just keep turning until it won't turn anymore. Then you're going to do the same thing with your white wires, your neutrals here. Get them lined up together and screw it on. Make sure you're pushing both wires as far into the end of the wire nut as you can the whole time so you get really good contact. And then your ground, same thing again. This one is super simple. We don't have to pigtail or anything. Then we're going to fold our wires up, tuck them in, make sure your wire nuts are secure, and we're ready to screw this in. Now, there is a little challenge here where, I don't know if you can see this, Edgar, but the holes on this electrical box behind, these 2 screw holes, are just a little bit narrower than the inside holes on the light. So we're going to have to very carefully kind of rock this insulation back and forth as we go to get the light to lay flat. So it takes a little bit of finesse. Just got to get my drill here. And so we've anchored one side in just gently, and now we're going to try to, at an angle here, get to this other side. You can see it's kind of pushing now, and I have a gap on this side, so I'm going to try to work this one in. And it's just bowing out a little bit right here, so we're going to keep rocking it back and forth. Try to get these screws all the way flat. Try to get this flush. Let's see. So we don't have that lip right there. And then at the end, we'll just get some caulking to fill that gap in to make sure it looks nice and flush. And that's it. The last part is your light cover. So again, you're going to look at these little notches, line them up with the hooks up here, and just press it firmly and give it a little half turn. There you go.
We're going ahead and spraying our second coat of our outside paint for our shiplap.
JC, I remember one of the things you mentioned was the wrist, like don't hold it at a side, like go straight on or what?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and show you just on a little spray. So what I was doing before is like this, right? It's, sorry if that sprays on. But, you know, as you can tell, like I was motioning my wrist. You don't want to do that. And I said arm on the video. That was my mistake. What you actually want to do is hold it nice and straight and go all the way as such in a straight line. That way it's just nice and plain field all the way through, you know.
It's about keeping a straight arm.
Yes, correct. It's not about actually moving your wrist or trying to, you know, get as much as you can on there. It's just about keeping a straight line and getting it all on there.
And very cool. And this is the second coat, right?
Yes, correct. It's the second coat. Oh. So right now, as you can see, I got all these buckets around me, around my painter as well. The reason why I do that is because I don't want to have to walk all the way across the building to go ahead and clean at the hose down station. So I keep 2 water buckets, clean water buckets with me at all times, just so if I do have to stop painting in case of lunch or some mishap or something, I always have my cleanup stuff ready to go. Basically, you just have 2 little buckets of water and one for your, as you can see, it's all painted white for the leftover spray paint. So I'm going to go ahead and start clearing her out of the paint, and you guys can watch. So you want to, the first step is to actually, I don't know if this is the proper first step, but what I like to do is take this out and wash her out, as it does get clumpy pretty fast. If you have your knife on you, you'll go ahead. You can see that? And just clear the paint out from right there. Just slightly. You don't want to, dent the metal or anything. Just get that paint out of there. Take it through the water one more time. I blow on it. You don't have to. But so now you can actually see it's pretty cleared up. Maybe a little more water in there. So we'll leave that soaking. Then what you want to go ahead and do is take your hoses out of your paint. Let them drip for a little. So you can tell they're dripping. You can see that? Yeah. Dripping paint. Just go ahead and let that paint out real quick. That way it doesn't get in your water too much, because otherwise you're going to be spraying paint water for a good 30 minutes. And you don't want to do that. That's a waste of time. And time is important. So you go ahead, let it dump out. Give it a little hit. Not too hard though, because it just is a metal mesh, and if you dent that, that could cause problems. So, okay, now you're going to just dump it in here. Kind of wash out the hose with it. That way when you go to your second bucket, you're not moving the paint along with it. And you're going to go ahead and put her on prime. So what this does is start sucking the water in. Put it back on. And you go ahead and actually you'll flip it to where the hole is actually showing. So right now it's just showing the lip or the little slit. I'm going to flip it over to where it's now showing the hole. You see that? Yeah. Go ahead and just spray in here. You can see we're spraying the paint. We're going to be spraying for a couple minutes here.
Here you're pushing the paint out.
Correct. You're just pushing it out with the water. So it's still, all this hose has paint in it. So what we're doing is, obviously this water is going to be dirty and filled with paint. But we're just making sure that we're pushing it as much as we can out, or the fresh paint out as much as we can. So we finished with that dirty water, Now we're in the second bucket. As you can tell, it's still kind of, white, I guess. But it's not as bad as this water or this water, right? So that means most of the paint is out. And right now I have it off because it already sucked some of the water on. But basically, if it's not sucking water in, you go like that to stop it from sucking. And once it's ready, it should pretty much do that. And you should be able to spray. And you'll hear that, right? And as you can tell, so this is a pretty clear bucket. And all I'm spraying, see, my water.
That's what you want, right?
Yeah, it's just pretty much water that I'm spraying now. As you can tell, it's a little white, sure, but I mean, that's because you still had some paint left over right here, right? But it's not actual paint where it's actually sticking, right? I'll even put it on my hand to demonstrate. So that just drips right off. Take your hand and it's nice and clean. So this thing's actually pretty much clean. I'm going to take some more steps just to make sure I do a proper job. And yeah, that's how you clean it out.
This light is a little bit different. It's not our totally basic light. We actually have 2 neutrals and 2 powers coming out here. And we had 2 grounds, but they've been Buchanan together up there already. So we're going to take our neutrals and get them together. We've already done the power and the neutrals. Oh, we didn't do our grounds. I always get neutrals and grounds mixed up. Let's get our grounds here. And that's it. So it's very similar, but we've got all of our whites together. On this one, twist your whites together before you add the light. And then when you're putting them into the nut, we'll just undo it and show you. So you want to have those twisted together already. You may need to strip your light a little bit more. And you want to put this wire into the nut first and then the other ones on top, so they'll kind of press it down. And then just give it a good twist until it won't turn anymore. Other than that, it's the same way as the other lights, just a little modification since we have extra wires here.
So the lights are nicely seated all the way around the ceiling. That's one of the big things. So while you're working on, especially with lights, a lot of people have a tendency to be working and touch the ceiling. Now, a lot of ceilings are painted with flat white, so you don't want to touch the ceiling because a lot of people will actually leave handprints on top of the ceiling. So try not to touch the ceiling when you're installing lights. That's one of the big things in the field that you'll have to go back and clean up. These lights are nicely seated. I don't see any problems with them. They look nice. And when you get done, you want to come back and just do a visual and just make sure that that the lights are lined up and you don't have one that's offset too far to the left, too far to the right, because you can make those slight adjustments when you get them installed. These look awesome. Loving it. One thing I'm going to bring you down here to the outlet. One thing I did notice is the outlet, it's installed, but you have a little bit of play. So as you push it in, you can see the little gap behind the screws. You want your ears to actually touch the drywall, because what's going to happen is the plate is going to sit off the wall a little bit, and you want your outlet to be tight in that box. So let's go over to this other one, and I'll show you right here. So you see you got a little bit of a gap. The plate's loose, and the outlet is loose. So one of the things that the inspector is going to come in, he's going to come in and put his plug in it, and he's going to shake that. Since I can move that whole outlet, he's going to fail you. So that's one thing to pay attention, is to get that device properly seated, and then get the cover down onto the drywall.
So in this case, it sounds like they're going to have to do a little bit more tightening up.
Yeah, just take the cover off, get the outlet seated back down, and then put the cover back on.
A great example of how it should not be, correct?
Yes. So it's just a minor fix. We can take care of that. Yes, sir. I'm very, very pleased with what I see going on right now. So what I'm looking for, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of orange peel going on right here. And that tells you that it's a little too much paint right there when it starts bubbling up like that. As we're walking along, I don't see any drips. Everything's got a nice clean coat on it. There's no shadowing where there's not enough paint, or he's getting a nice good texture all the way across. So one thing I did notice when I came back around was this door frame, or the door casing, wasn't caulked when they painted. So here you got just a nice little opening going all the way down. But what really caught my eye was on the other side of the door frame is a tall tale of no caulking. So we will have them touch this up and repaint it. It's not a big deal as long as we catch it now and take care of it now.